Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
An emerging rivalry took place in the Premier League when Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool hosted Pep Guardiola's City at Anfield. A win would have taken either side top early in the season, and the match ended 2-2 thanks to goals by Salah and Mane for the Reds, whilst Foden and De Bruyne equalised for the Citizens. The XG shows that in terms of quality of chances, things were roughly even. The XG time map also shows how Liverpool came on strong in the second half after an anonymous first half. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. A quick reminder of the formations, with both Klopp and Pep sticking to their preferred 4-3-3s and barely rotating from last weekend's matches, aside from Milner coming in for the injured Trent. Let's begin with Liverpool in possession. In the first few minutes, Liverpool looked dangerous, mainly due to City's shape when defending higher. City's press was not intense, but Grealish, initially at false 9, would be more withdrawn on Fabinho, whilst Jesus and Foden were more narrow, trying to cut off the routes into the fullbacks whilst covering the centre-backs. This meant that City only had one wide defender on either side. But the problem is, the two wingers weren't putting any pressure on the centre-backs, perhaps because they were also concerned with cutting off the passing lane, as you can see with City ending up with an extremely high passes per defensive action of almost 30. So, Matip and Van Dijk had time to get their heads up. So in the early phases, Robertson in particular could push high up early so that he and Mane had a 2 versus 1 against Cancelo. And the centre-backs could look to hit them with switches, leading to dangerous situations. The one advantage of City's initial shape is that Fabinho would be tied up, making central progression harder for the Reds. But it only took 15 minutes or so for Pep to adapt to the dangers that Liverpool were posing out wide, by switching from a rough 4-4-2 diamond to a flatter 4-4-2, meaning that City now had 2 men defending wide on either side. So if the switches came in, City would then be more of a 2 versus 2 situation, which makes it slightly easier to defend. This 4-4-2 was flexible depending on who was closest to the ball, with Foden, De Bruyne, Jesus and Bernardo all pushing up alongside Grealish at different times. One disadvantage though is that now, if the forwards were bypassed, it was much easier for Fabinho to get on the ball and dictate the next phase of play, as Liverpool now had a 3 versus 2 advantage in the midfield. And Liverpool looked to manipulate City well when City only had 2 in midfield, as they had that overload. Jones dropped in as a second pivot alongside Fabinho, and City's pivots could have their attention drawn to them. And Henderson generally operated high in the right half space, ahead of the other 2 midfielders, as you can see in their average positions. This means that he, Milner and Salah created this wide triangle that was in constant rotation, causing City problems. It often meant that they had a 3 versus 1 or a 3 versus 2 against Cancelo at the back. So, often, Cancelo would initially be drawn central, giving Salah space out wide to initially receive the switch from a centre-back. He would then be in a 1 versus 1 position with Cancelo, and we saw him cause the fullback problems time and again, leading to both goals, and Salah completed a game-high 5 dribbles. But it should be noted that when he didn't go for the dribble, there was always the option of the man making the run into the half space, which was consistently on. But City were also a great attacking threat, so what tactics did they use? When City had the ball, they tried to build short as much as they could. Liverpool pressed more than City did, and their front 3 was fairly narrow when pressing, with Salah and Mane coming narrow. This meant that the centre-backs were under consistent pressure, and even Walker dropping in to be the third centre-back wouldn't give them the numerical advantage that Pep loves in the first line. So soon, both fullbacks were forced to begin much deeper than usual to provide the centre-backs with outlet options. And City could then look to manipulate Liverpool in the wide regions, as Cancelo often received outside Salah, and this would draw the covering Henderson across. But Bernardo would then often be free to receive past Henderson and drive forward. But it should be noted that City were often able to attempt riskier balls into Rodri when the forward's cover shadows were not stopping the pass. Usually when Firmino is the centre forward, he is more withdrawn, cutting off the pivot, not unlike Grealish did for City. And this allows Salah and Mane to be even more aggressive with their out-to-in press. But with Jota, or at times Mane being higher, Rodri was often able to receive behind the first line of pressure and dictate the next phase of play. And not unlike the PSG front three who played against City midweek, Liverpool's own front three were poor on the defensive end of things. And the left-hand side, where Salah was often caught central, was consistently targeted. When Cancelo pushed high, Foden would look to make runs into the half space. But we also often saw Bernardo push up from midfield to look to operate between the lines, allowing Foden to start wider and have 1-versus-1 situations with Milner all game, who he caused several problems. The high narrow position contributes to the Foden goal. Mane and Salah are extremely high and narrow, so when the ball comes to De Bruyne, Mane is out of the game, meaning City have a 3-versus-2 down the right, and Walker makes a decoy run, which gives Jesus momentary space to come infield, where he can then find Foden for the finish. But even down the right hand side, the high front three led to problems. With City having men between the lines, it also meant that Liverpool would only have 4 men deep. And as we know, City often attack with the front 5, with midfielders pushing up into the half space. This meant that the citizens consistently got men into the box down the half space, and though they couldn't make the most of it, it caused them problems. Overall, this tightly contested match could have gone either way, with Milner probably deserving of a sending off, while City needed a miraculous block from Rodri to stop a third. On the overall balance of play, City may be disappointed, with just a point after one of their finer performances at Anfield in recent years. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down below. And introducing a new segment, the Manager Tactical Score, where we rate how well the manager's tactics worked regardless of the final score, on a scale of 1 to 10. For today, in my estimation, Pep's approach and in-game adaptations worked better, earning him an 8, whilst Klopp was no slouch either, getting a high 6. But leave your ratings down below. And if you enjoyed this video, you may also enjoy the FMS Patreon. On Patreon, you'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as the ability to vote on various polls and so much more. It's a great way to support the channel, and it is now cheaper than ever. All you have to do is head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple, or press the card in the top right or the end card at the end of this video. And a special thanks to my patrons including Carl Kjellberg.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.